Welcome to Paladin Global Markets Online Business Podcast. I'm excited today to introduce to you our guest, Lauri-Ann Ainsworth, who's joining us from Jamaica. Welcome, Lauri-Ann.
Hi, thanks, Michelle. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, we're so glad to have you here. I want to take a moment to read her bio so everyone in our audience can appreciate why I'm so excited to have her on the show. Lauri-Ann helps coaches to get clear on their niche and package it up into one signature framework that can be used to create multiple revenue streams so they can scale their impact and income without burning out. Oh my gosh, I need your help because I know as entrepreneurs, we have a tendency to do that. So tell us a little bit about how we can prevent that.
Yeah, so that's my big mission, to help people not burn out, because I was burning out myself as an entrepreneur, a mom, just doing all the things.
Yeah.
And I realized that with coaches, what was burning them out was not having a singular focus, just trying to do all the things. So yeah. So I realized that, the other thing was people were just implementing tactics and strategies that they hear from other coaches who are doing well, or, who have reached that other stage in business, not recognizing that they needed to start with the foundation, which was niching down, figuring out that signature system so that they can turn that into a repeatable offering in different ways. So I'll tell you how you can do that.
Please.
So first, figuring out your niche, right? When you're figuring out your niche, most people think that your niche is your ideal client. And the way I do it, it's not necessarily that way. It is more the problem that you're solving. Now, when we start to think about our niche as this overarching problem, like what problem are you solving for people? There are going to be multiple people that have that problem. So when we hear people talk about, I help women or I help mothers, like a mom can have so many problems. You and I are both moms, right?
Yes, exactly.
We were just talking about how do we work with kids in the house, right? So that's one problem.
Yes.
A mom who's running a business may have another problem. How do I get more clients? And, so there are just a multitude of problems that an ideal client can have. But when you start with the problem that you want to solve, that you can offer a solution to, because you have either an experience with it, or it's in your zone of genius, or you have the skill sets to help with that particular problem, then you can move on to who has that problem, right? And who you want to work with. So when coaches start out, the best thing that you can do is start solving a problem, working with multiple people, and then figuring out, who do I want to work with?
Right. Tweaking it based on the experience.
Correct. And so when you take that approach, it allows you to figure out, what? I thought I wanted to work with moms, but actually I've been attracting some men and I like working with men and I like the vibe that they have, So it just gives you a different perspective and it allows you to figure out who's most attracted to you too. So that's one.
That's key. That you have so much wisdom in what you just said there, because I'm so guilty of that. I have many things going on, and as an entrepreneur, I'm always trying to learn, and keep ahead of things. And so I learn, you got to work on your funnel, and you got to work on your email list, and you got to work on your YouTube, and it's just like you feel like you're pulled in so many different directions. But narrowing it down, like you said, it brings a lot of peace, and you could tell if you're going in too many different directions, you're going to burn out. You're just not made to do it that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, the challenge with that is that when coaches start, coaches mostly, they don't have an entrepreneur mindset. An entrepreneur mindset is around, how do I take my idea and turn it into reality? And the way they do that is by testing. So when you're an entrepreneur and you're starting a business, and everybody says, oh, I'm launching my business, it's not necessarily a business yet. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but what it means is that you have to put that entrepreneurial cap on and start to figure out, am I really solving a problem? Like, do people actually have this problem? Are there enough people with this problem, right? So do you have a market? And third, are people willing to pay for this solution that I have to offer, right?
That's huge.
Yeah. So when we take that entrepreneurial mindset, that approach, then it allows us to test. It allows you to work with those different clients, testing to see if people want it, testing to see who you want to work with, and testing to see if you can actually get a result for people with whatever it is that you're doing, right?
Right. And do you think this is a continual effort throughout your business, or is there like a certain period of time when you get started that you're really in that beginning, that testing phase and that focusing down phase?
Yeah, so there is. So there are different stages, right? So I like to call the first stage a startup phase, and everyone in the entrepreneurial world knows about that startup phase, right? And that's when you're doing the testing. That's when you're building something. That's when you're testing to build something. Then you're moving into that ramp up stage where you're growing. So you've tested your offer, you've tested your target audience, and you know who it is that you're working with. Now you need to get more experience, prove that you can get consistent and repeatable results, as well as start growing that revenue, right? So that's in the ramp up stage. And that's where you want to start adding some more things in. And particularly for like coaches, if this is a point at which you want to start moving from that one-to-one to that one-to-many. Yeah. So that this is where you start to create your courses. This is where you start to offer your services to many people at once. And this is when you're ramping up. So you're now proving that, okay, this can actually become a sustainable business model, right? And then you move into the scale up stage. And this is where this is where you become the CEO, right? This is where you are now transitioning from entrepreneur to CEO, because a CEO runs a business and maintains a business, right? And this is where you want exponential growth. This is where you start adding in those funnels and start getting a team on board and start adding more systems in place to help you to scale, because scale is now exponential. You're not growing, you're now figuring out, how can I take the signature system that I have and how can I scale it? Like, what can I do to ensure that I'm growing? Because a one-to-one model, working with clients one-to-one, is not a sustainable model. Sure. Right? That's sure a burnout.
Yeah, because you only have so much time in a day and you're only one person.
Correct. Yeah. You know, especially people have so many things doing, like, and now during this time where we have kids at home, where we have so many distractions, you know, and so many things to do, right? It's going to be important that we understand that the first step is, what's that niche? What's that focus? How can I really zone in on trying to test this framework, or the signatures framework? Right. And that signature framework is really just, what are the steps that I'm going to take my client through to go from where they are now to where they want to be?
I love that. I love that. And, you know, I think you've said, from what you've said, I've taken a huge point of, I think a lot of people jump in sometimes into creating their online course and creating them without testing it. And what you're saying is, first start one-on-one with your customer, your ideal customer, and you're listening to them and you're learning and you're refining the process, and then you scale it out into something like that. Otherwise, I think a lot of people sometimes do jump into just making the course and then like crickets. They're waiting like, well, where is? And that's because they kind of got the cart before the horse.
Exactly. And I think the beauty about working in that niche and that one-on-one is that you're going to get the testimonials, but you're going to get confidence, because when you have worked with a client and you're like, wow, that worked. It works. It works. And then you do it with another client, you're like, okay, that didn't work so well. So how can I tweak that? Yeah. And you keep doing that until you now become so confident in your niche and in your signature framework that you have this client journey that you've created, that you can now create a course, and it's going to be so much easier to sell that course, right?
That's so wise. Yes, because you have your pulse on the customer's heartbeat, so to say, and you're identifying those broken systems. Or like for me, I have an online course and I took it through beta first, which was just so valuable because you got the feedback, like so simple as, oh, you gave me this URL, but you gave me this code, but when I got in, I had another step. So now I know, okay, make sure that I prep them. They're going to verify their email first and different things. And then of course, into the depth of the course itself, like, okay, well, I did this now how to, you know, they may be getting stuck on a certain point where you can tweak it before you scale it.
Exactly. That's exactly it, Michelle, because like when you do that, you're going to get so much information that you're not going to have when you have launched a course and you've not tested it before, you're going to get a lot of refund requests, right?
It's a good point. You could have them. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, those are things that you want to avoid. And when you don't have the confidence that you can actually produce a result with your course or whatever your framework is, it's going to be that much harder for you to actually convince people to want to buy it, right? Because there's
Yes.
so many people in the space doing what you're doing,
Yes.
but you, of course, you're going to have your own little secret sauce and you're going to have your own way of being, which is going to be a differentiator for you, but you have to have results.
Absolutely. And it'll come across in many different ways, and people will be able to pick up on it. Is it something that you're right, the confidence that they're experiencing and they're feeling? And do you truly know what you're talking about? And have you been able to walk many people through that and get on the testimonials that you can use as well? Which that was the most valuable part of my beta is the voice, getting the feedback, and then also the testimonials that I can use to continue to share with others.
Yeah, exactly. And the beauty about starting at the very beginning, a very good place to start. Dating.
Yeah.
Is that you can now figure out what is it that I am good at, that I can really offer this solution to. Because as you said, when you get into the meat and potatoes of it and you have this course or you're trying to launch this business and you're doing something that maybe you're not that great at, so you can't get those results for people, or that you don't love doing. When you start this singular focus niche and testing, it's giving you that space to really figure out, you know what, I'm actually really good at doing this. And I've actually been getting people results in this. I'm confident in that, versus this is something that I see people doing and seems to have a lot of money
Right.
Yes. Right. And then you're not, you just don't have the skill set or the ability to do it because that's not your zone of genius.
Right.
And so really focusing in on nailing that niche, figuring out what it is that you can do and what value you can bring to someone else is going to be so critical for you to really grow and scale a successful business.
Huge. That's huge. What are some tips you can provide our audience to help them to figure out that niche? Do you have some secret sauces on that?
Yeah. So, first thing I would do is, if you're already helping people, just start writing down, what are some of the main topics that you help people with? Like, what's that outcome? What do people want when they come to you, and what do they get when they finish working with you? So I would start there, looking at who you've been interacting with already and what problems you're already solving. I think the biggest thing that you can do is just look at what problems are you helping to solve? What are you helping people to decrease? And what are you helping them to increase? So are you helping them to increase confidence? Are you helping them to increase clients or leads or whatever? Are you helping them to decrease lack of burnout or anxiety? Just look at how it is that you're helping people and what the outcome is. And I think this is going to give you clarity on who you want or what problem you're solving, and so therefore what niche.
Right, absolutely. That's huge. I think a lot of people, they probably underestimate their zone of genius. They probably underestimate that people out there are really wanting to fast track their journey so that they don't have to struggle on whatever it is you've already figured out in your own life. And there's a lot of value in that, but sometimes taking it and, like you said, putting it more into a framework and narrowing down into where your expertise can best serve someone. And then from there, getting the feedback and saying, okay, well, I think this is really going to work. All right, is it really working? And then continuing to take those levels that you shared with us. What are some different things that some things that come to mind that you can also help someone after they've narrowed down their niche? What would be the next word of advice you would give them?
Yeah. So if you've narrowed down on your niche and you are confident that this is the area you want to work in, I would start looking at how do you help them? This is where your signature framework comes in, right? So it's being able to look at what is a journey that I take them on? Like, what are the steps that they need to need to take to get this transformation. And this is powerful because so many people will say, hey, I can help you to nail your niche, but I don't know what the steps are. I'm not confident that you know what you're talking about. But when you put it into a framework where you can look at this journey, this is going to help you when you're coaching people one-on-one. So you don't have to think about what's the next step.
Right.
And it gives people an idea that you have a roadmap that you figured out that they can follow. And this is what people want.
Absolutely. That is so wise because I have in my own journey on a side, I love helping people to, and I don't get paid for this part of it. I love helping to teach people how to get out of debt and to save and do a budget. And I've done that just as a heart passion on the side at my church for over a decade. And there's one thing in knowing the material, but there's another thing when you have to teach it to someone else. It's a whole different gamut. Like, well, I know it, but how do I get them to understand it? And then sometimes I think as coaches or as educators, we tend to give too much and they're like, hold on, let's simplify it. So they're not drinking through a fire hose, so to say. And like you said, give them those clear, like keep it simple, keep it shorter, give them the step by step. I've heard many people that have had, when I was going to build my course, and I've talked about that people think they need to provide so much information, and it's actually the opposite. You don't want to overwhelm your student or your client that you're trying to help. You want to take them on that clear map journey. I think that was very, very great advice. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And, I think that we've all been guilty of that at some time or another for various reasons. Yeah, I know I have.
Yeah.
Whether we want to show, hey, I know what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to give you all of this information so that you know that I'm smart and
like I can do this. Yeah. And then they're like, whoa. And then what do?
Exactly.
When they're overwhelmed, they don't do anything. They're like,
do nothing.
No.
And they get no results. So, it's a matter of, and I love that. And that's something that I talk about all the time, the word to use, simplify. When we simplify, we scale back, we niche down. It's so that you can get people a result quick. Because you know what? Who wants to watch 4 hours of video to learn to do something anymore? Right. Once upon a time, we were just like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm going to get 4 hours of content. That's just amazing. But then you sit with that 4 hours of content and you do nothing with it. So, it's simplifying, it's allowing people to really grasp concepts super quick and easily in order to get them to move and take action, which is like the third component of what I do, which is really simplifying your message so that people understand what you're saying and how you can help them.
Love that. I love that. Can you expound a little bit more on that for us?
Yeah. So I think that this is a big one for many coaches, some entrepreneurs, that they aren't able to clearly communicate what they do, who they serve, or how they do it. And everything that we've been talking about before helps you to create this kind of singular message, and not just a singular message, not just say, I am a coach who helps people do this, this, and that. That's great. And it's good for you to know that statement, but how are you communicating what you do throughout your messaging, throughout your marketing? It's going to be very important so that people understand what differentiates you, and what differentiates you is going to be, what's my point of view with solving this problem? How do I do this in a different way? And many coaches tend to talk about the process that they do. Right. So, I was just on a call with a client this morning, right before here, we're talking about, I use this modality and this one, and I move them through this. And I'm like, you're stuck in coach mode, which is process, right? You need to move out of coach mode into, what are people actually Googling when they have a problem, right?
And that's good. Yeah, because that'll help you streamline down. I do that with my YouTube videos. Before I create them, I actually reverse engineer them. I don't just make the videos. I go in and see what people are already searching for and where the need is already met. And that really helps in the rankings, but it helps to simplify, like you said, so that you can give them the results they're looking for, not necessarily all the steps in between.
Yeah. You know what? At the end of the day, people don't really remember that process. They just remember the result.
Yeah.
So, whether you're in personal development or whether you're a business coach, a health coach, anything that you're doing, people want the result, right? So when we're stuck in coach mode and we're just talking about our process, it means our messaging is not clear. For many reasons. It means that you haven't identified the problem that you're actually solving. You haven't recognized what your clients actually think their problem is, which is another big thing. It's not tricking people to tell them what they want, but give them what they need. It's actually in service, because people don't always know the solutions to their problems. They know what their problems are. And your program or your process can help them to get there, but you have to talk to them in terms of what their problem is. So getting clear on that messaging is going to be so important.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm actually going to go back through. You have my wheels spinning, because I think sometimes we get so much into and I know for myself as an entrepreneur, I really get into the depth of all the details and getting everything done. And sometimes it's hard I've really been in this process of getting myself out of my head and putting myself into the consumer's mindset. And what is it? You're right. And talking about, they're looking for an outcome, not necessarily a step A, B. Like, how are you going to solve my problem? How are you going to fix my pain point? And do it in a way that's easily digestible for them, a framework like you talk about.
Yeah. And I mean, once you hit all of these three things, figuring out what your niche is, figuring out what your signature framework is, that journey, and getting really clear about your message that people can understand it easily. I always say, break it down like a 6-year-old could understand it. That's how easy you want it to be. So people can go, oh, that's a problem I have. But once you have these three things, this is where you're going to start moving fast in your journey, because once you've nailed this, it means that you know what kind of content to produce, because that content is coming straight out of your framework. You don't have to be like, oh my God, what should I create a YouTube video about? What should I do with my podcast about, or social media? It's all coming out of your framework, because this is your core, right? And then you start to get noticed and you start to become an expert around this, and it makes life so much easier for you, right?
I love that. My wheels are spinning. I'm going to have to re-listen to this myself, because I love taking notes. Thank you. I mean, that's just fantastic advice. And I know our audience is going to absolutely cherish it as well, because it's something I think we know what we have, hearts that want to help people. And of course, we're doing this as well as a business. So we need to be compensated for our time and our expertise. But if our heart's passion is to help people, we truly do want to get them the result that we're trying to go after, and to try to put it in a digestible format. Like you said, put it easily so a 6-year-old can enjoy it, or, like a baby, you give them baby food. You don't give them steak, just make it real, not that they're babies, but you just make it real easy and digestible for them, so they can put to action what you're teaching them and helping them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Is there some, anything else that comes to mind? And actually, let me back up. What is the biggest struggle? And I love asking this to our amazing guests that come on the show. What's the biggest struggle that you have encountered and overcome as a business owner?
So, that is actually getting clarity on my niche. So that is,
that's your message. That was your pain point.
Yeah, it was my pain point. You know what I always say? We teach our own medicine. So and going back to that whole zone of genius, my background is in marketing and entrepreneurship. This is what I've been doing for like the last decade plus. And I would sit with people who would constantly come to me, and I would help them get clear on what they were doing and so forth. And then I'd be like, okay, now I have to go get clarity on what I'm doing. And I would just feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, because I can do all these things, I can help people with all these things. And so my biggest struggle was like having to coach myself and say, stop, hold on a second. Right. It's actually easy for you to help people get clear on these things. It's easy for you to help people map this out. Maybe that's what you should be doing, because, it was so easy for me to do it for other people. And I was just like, okay, this, and I think we all struggle with this, because when we're good at something, we take it for granted, and it is always that zone of genius. It is always this thing, but it's so simple that we think that our impact is not going to be great. And so that was my biggest struggle. And that is why I'm teaching my own medicine.
I love
using
that.
my own skill sets. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's huge. I think that's a powerful truth for us to apply in our own lives as well, as to just where is our zone of genius? Like I know that I'm really good at what I do with my eBay business. I took it from nothing and then I tripled the profits when I learned about consignment reselling, selling things for other people on eBay, and then just bringing in help so that I could scale it. And I know there's other people that are wanting to make a great part-time or full-time income doing it, but they don't quite know where to start. And I know that I'm really good at it, but then taking it and breaking it down where you're making it clear, like you said, and doing an easy framework is key for them. I love that.
Yeah.
So what if someone wanted to get a hold of you and have you help them, they're like, please help us with our coaching or our business. Where are how can they find you?
Yeah, thanks for asking that.
Absolutely.
So you can find me at lauriannainsworth.com, and I have my free niching guide there that you can actually take up and look at. It has a lot of good information in there that will actually help you to start figuring out your niche. But yeah, you can check me out there. I'm also on Instagram, same handle, Lauri-Ann Ainsworth. And yeah, love
That's
to hear from anyone
awesome.
who needs some help.
Oh, we would well, I'm going to make sure that those links are in our show notes as well. So you guys can check that out. Is there any last word of advice or anything that you'd like to leave us with today?
Yeah, I think, guys, don't overcomplicate it. Simplify, please, please, just simplify things. You don't need to be doing every single marketing tactic out there. Get focused on doing one thing really, really well.
Yeah.
You will have the ability to grow and expand, but just zero in, and I promise you, you're going to see results.
Oh my gosh, I'm taking that for medicine for me. Thank you so much. It was just such a pleasure having you on the show. And Paladin Global Market Online Business Podcast Community, we are so glad you're here. I will make sure those links are in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you check out her stuff. She's got some great value for you. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you.